listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, people who play it. Today is May 17th, 2022, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Tuesday?
No, Spencer, hello. Good afternoon to you. I'm doing well. We got it's kind of a slow news week, weirdly. You know, we've had so much over the last little while here with 9.2 coming out straight into, 925 PTR hot on its heels, and then the expansion announcement and all that, and really quiet official communications this week. So been pretty busy in the game and a lot of stuff going on there, but I'm really, I still think we're probably about a month out from 925 at least, but it's weird that we're not seeing more updates and communication about stuff. But also I guess on the classic side, there's a lot of stuff happening, and the team has a lot going on, but also there may have been, as we record this, there may have been some significant changes to a certain raid instance,
yes,
and they haven't been formally published yet. So if you're listening to this later on in the weekly cycle, just know that we're recording this at about 12:45 Eastern on Tuesday. So it seems like there's some changes, but we don't have them in blue text at the moment.
Yeah, I might rant about them slightly if, just to hint at when the changes come through. There's a timing factor for me that's frustrating, but just for me individually, not for everyone else. They're great changes for everyone else if they actually did come through. But yeah, we basically have sources that go through the Dungeon Journal regularly and go, hey, did anything change from last week to this week in the Dungeon Journal as far as numbers go? And yes, to answer that question, there are changes that happened between last week and this week. Now, do we know that those are live and they've actually taken place and they're on bosses and whatnot? No. So we're not going to report on them directly in detail on the show until they actually come out and are talked about that way. But there's lots to talk about this week in World of Warcraft as far as things that you can do and things that are a good time. But before we dive into it, Jason, what did you do this past week in World of Warcraft?
Well, it was a bit of a roller coaster week in terms of raiding, especially. The plan was we were going to utilize the heroic skip to, instead of re-clearing and re-farming out the two side wings, just go straight to Anduin, go to Prague, and then decide what we were going to do from there. That turned into basically wiping on Anduin all night Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I think we raided from 7:30 to 9:30. I think we killed Anduin shortly after 9, and that was the second boss that we killed that night. And I just called the raid early at that point because everybody was so frustrated and on edge that nobody was having fun. So there's no reason to continue to do that. A lot of it just came down to people not paying attention to mechanics and handling them properly. And then, we had a 28 or 29 player group, and that adds up. So part of that's on me. I think I need to make some swifter decisions when it comes to cutting the group down or something. If somebody's having a bad night or just repeatedly making bonehead mistakes on a mechanic, they need to be sat. It's just that simple. You're ruining the good time of everybody else who showed up to play the game because you're not paying attention to the basics. Wednesday ended up being pretty much just Lords and Rygalon. That's really all we had time for. We did re-clear them. It wasn't really super pretty. Rygalon is okay. The nerfs have helped a lot. Lords is a funny fight because it either feels undoable or like it was easy. It seems to be the way that it goes. Again, that might just be if the right individuals get targeted with the mechanics, then they get handled properly. And if the wrong ones get targeted, then everybody suffers. So
right.
That seems to be my thinking on that. The majority of the group knows how to handle the nastiest stuff, and some people are just kind of lagging behind. The cool thing was that we did have time for Mythic Sunday, and we did get Vigilant Guardian down in, I think, 12 total pulls or something. So nothing too intense in terms of wipes. I got to say that fight is really fun. I think I prefer the Mythic version to the lower difficulty versions.
It's one of those fights where, and I've talked about this before, it's designed as a Mythic encounter, and then they try and decide what the heroic will look like, and then try and decide what the normal will look like, and then so on LFR by paring things down or removing elements from the fight. So if you want to see the actual complete whole fight, you need to do the mythic encounter, and often the actual mythic encounter is a more enjoyable experience, from what I've found.
Yeah, I think it's just the pacing just feels better. It's pretty. You have some more options with the strat in terms of how you kind of get the boss to 40% and stuff like that. It's the pacing is just way better than waiting for waves of ads, and it feels kind of non-interactive or whatever as you kind of scale up beyond the initial check. So it was awesome. It was really good to get a mythic fight under our belts, and I think we'll probably end up looking at Skolex next before we start working on Heroic Jailer, just to see if we get 2 mythic fights under our belt every week, then that's, a 278 raid item in the vault and everything like that. So that seems pretty doable. It seems worth it to me, and I think to most of our group. But, then again, we also have some people who aren't really interested in mythic raiding. We have some people who are cross-realm. Cross-realm raid is not open yet, and we're not really requiring that people spend money to transfer to our dead server, especially since, depending on what happens over the summer and in the lead up to Dragonflight, we may not remain on the server if there aren't some realm connections and some changes made.
Right.
And those people can't participate right now, so they that we might end up in some spots where we just don't quite have 20 at the moment, and that's going to be really frustrating. But It was a very weird week of raid. I think a lot of people walked away frustrated, even though we got the thing we ultimately wanted. It just didn't really feel good. We did have some time after Mythic Vigilant Guardian to go, just bang out some heroic bosses, try to get some trinkets out for people that were looking for particular items. So that was cool.
There's a few things in there for me. One is we had a very similar raid week to you when it came to we basically went in to try and kill a boss that we'd gotten down to, I think it was 6% previously. So we were working on Rygalon and had that, we just can't get back to phase 3 experience. And then the next night we got him to 2.92%. And then we just couldn't get back to phase 3. And so very frustrating as far as that goes. And what I wanted to hint on as not feeling very satisfied, you didn't have the celebration feeling you normally have, was I find that for teams, the team that I'm currently on, if we're somewhere between 200 pulls and 250 pulls, no one's satisfied when the boss dies. Everyone's like, oh, good, it's finally out of the way, as opposed to like, oh, great, we're done that, as opposed to like cheering and being excited about it. If it's anywhere beyond 250 pulls, there's that cheer of relief of, oh, thank goodness we finally gotten this finished and is done. And if it's anywhere before that, then we're excited that we killed it and it's, feels good to have killed it. There's like this weird window where if you kill the boss in this window, the satisfaction is just not there.
Yeah. And I think especially for me, like just routinely wiping on a non-prog boss, even is, it just speaks to people's head not being in the game. They're either not, like, they either fundamentally don't understand the fights, and that's why they're making the mistakes, or and they're not asking the right questions so that they can understand, or they're not really following directions. Like, as a raid leader, I obviously call out the things to be aware of and to watch out for, and the things that cause wipes, before every
mechanic,
pull or before we start the boss for the week or whatever. And I can only say things in so many different ways. So, I don't know. There may be some necessary changes going forward. I mean, the bottom line is that I cannot expect my large group of raiders to do what we did especially with the Anduin fight last week, every single week for the rest of this season, and then every third week in season 4.
Right.
People will stop showing up. They'll drop group. They'll abandon the group. They'll find somewhere else to play, I think, because the frustration levels are just too high. Like, finding the opposite color and safely clearing the debuff should be a simple task after you've seen it a few times. So, hopefully this week will be better. Those off weeks happen over time. Like when you raid every week, like you have good and bad weeks. This is the kind of thing that I'm actually surprised we haven't had more of those. So that was pretty much raid. Mythic Plus for the week was okay. It was a pretty easy week overall. I didn't get much raiding, and I didn't get 8 keys in. I wanted to do more because it was a fun week to play.
It was a great week, yeah.
I didn't really have time. I didn't have time to squeeze any more in, and people that I usually play with weren't really around when I happened to be around outside of like scheduled times. Also, a problem. I'm up over like 28, 30 rating or something. So I'm getting there. I still have some real low hanging fruit in a couple dungeons where like my scoring runs are like 15s and 16s. So I'm getting there. But the problem that I'm having is I'm targeting the other side as much as I possibly can. Anytime anybody in my group has the other side, I just, I put that out there as my choice. I need a season 3 blood spattered scale. I guess need is a strong word. I can probably live without it, but I would really like one. It would be a nice upgrade. I'm using a 246 item level version of it right now, and it's still better than, most of the raid trinkets. And so that's costing me rating because I've done DOS to death. I have pretty high rating on it, and I'm prioritizing it over everything else. I'd rather do a 17 the other side than a 20 Plaguefall, which would be, 4 or 5 ranks of rating for me. But I need the drop. It's getting kind of frustrating at this point. We're this far into the season. We're what? I don't know, 12 weeks into the season or longer or something like that. It's been a while now, and still not having that. I guess, the next step is going to have to be doing lower keys, just trying to run DOS quickly as many times as possible in a week and seeing if I can farm up a drop and then upgrade it. I will say the lack of Valor cap is great. That felt really good. I did like 6 dungeons or something and had a ton of Valor to show for it. It makes callings relevant. I'm making sure to do callings to just stack that Valor up for when I get drops.
Yeah.
So
I was trying to do it too.
Callings give you gold and some other stuff too. Like they're not unhelpful, but they weren't really part of my weekly rotation in a world with a Valor cap and stuff. So that's been fun, dipping in there and doing that and watching that Valor stack up. And beyond that, I actually ended up getting my mage to max level. I ended up getting finishing the week with 2-piece bonus and the 265 unity from the campaign questing. So that's been really fun. Definitely a big change of pace. I'm running around killing stuff. Stuff dies when I shoot my magic at it. And the 2-piece that procs the Comet Storm for Frost is like super fun. It's super cool looking. It hits hard. It's a great effect. But I also die a lot because I'm not used to dying. So it's confusing when I attack a few enemies and they kill me. I'm like, what's happening here? The next thing I started doing, like as I was finishing that up, I started working on the Hunter because I think this is just what I'm doing now. I think my goal is I want to do the Covenant campaigns, all 4 of them on characters of each armor class, so that I get all of those transmog sets unlocked, like at least the base, color scheme on all. I guess it's 16 sets total, right? 4 armor classes for 4 Covenants. So just have, yeah,
you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
right.
I mean, it's a lot. I already have a bunch of it unlocked, right? Because I did plate on 2 and I did leather on 2. So that speeds it up a bit. But, that'll be the next thing I think I work on once I get the mage and the hunter like decked with 4-piece and with double legendary, then that'll probably be the next thing that I do. And then once I get that far, then I don't know. That's when I'll have to assess if I have any more, immediate goals or if I'm just in maintenance mode. But yeah, I'm having a great time. I really like mixing up, playing different characters in different styles. And I think the game is really accommodating for, a fresh level 60 to get in there and have fun, especially if you have like a character to funnel resources in, get the 226 gear and just get in there and play. It feels really good.
Yeah. No, the callings also help with that secondary goal of getting all of the transmog that you're talking about, because you need to get the what are those tokens are?
Grateful offerings.
The grateful offerings in order to actually be able to get all that transmog, which is going to increase in 9.2.5, so there'll be even more grateful offerings to get. However, for now, just getting them from the callings is really nice. I was doing them this week again. Yeah, the Valor cap being removed certainly was a motivator to just do callings again, because why not get the Valor? I'm doing my 4 dungeons isn't going to cap me anymore, so I might as well just farm out some callings and get the extra Valor and be able to upgrade some more pieces, which ties me into my vault conversation for this week, Jason, and maybe you know where this is going. Monday night before raid, I had gotten up enough Valor over the weekend to upgrade my boots to 272, put on those boots, went in and killed Rygalon. It felt great, and we got Rygalon dead, and man, was that ever cool to finally finish that boss and get it out of the way. And I log in today, and I open my vault, and the exact same boots I upgraded are right there in my vault at 278. And that was a whole bunch of Valor that I just used. So
congrats on the Rygalon kill. Sorry about the Valor thing. I mean, yeah, that does suck, but I do feel I feel like, at least for myself, I feel like that's blunted a bit in a world where we don't have a cap anymore. It's kind of the cost of doing business now. It used to be like well, this is going to be weeks until I can recover from this.
Exactly.
At least you don't have that anymore. It is still super frustrating, though.
It is, but it's one of those cases where, if without having some sort of refund system or some sort of like scrapper that gives you back Valor when you scrap a Valor piece or whatever it is, I am glad the cap's gone. So at least this week, I only have one more piece that I'll actually dump a bunch of Valor into that would affect me immediately. And so it's not dire. It's just one of those like, okay, well, I wish I'd chosen this other piece of gear as opposed to my boots because I just upgraded my boots. So, that was the thing. I continue to make sure that I haven't been doing my 9 vault like I was before, but I continue to always do a 3 vault just to make sure I get the offering of 6 coins because 6 coins is what you need to buy a socket. So that's the most coins you can get from the reward for a week. So as long as you are doing, in my case, I did 4 dungeons and then I did 2 bosses, and the 2 bosses I did actually were LFR. I just went in and did an LFR wing and killed the first 2 bosses and then left because that got me my 3rd case, and then I was being offered 6 coins. So that was my 3 that I needed, which was great. And that guarantees I'm able to do sockets.
Yeah, it's easy enough.
So as opposed to doing 8 Mythic Plus, if you didn't have time to do 8 Mythic Plus, that was another way to do it. The four Mythic Plus I did were all Theaters of Pain. I'm still farming my Ruby, trying to get my Ruby. So it's an ongoing journey. It's a really hard trinket to get because there's 2 trinkets out of there. And then there's, I believe, 9 or 10 other pieces of gear that you qualify for because there's like 3 rings.
There's a lot of
like
rings,
2 sets of pants, and like a
5
chest
boss
piece.
dungeon, right?
Yeah,
so you get 5 bosses worth of loot, and they can all be in that chest. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just tricky to get. So, and that is basically what I've decided is I'm not farming more rating. Obviously, I'm up over 3K, so I'm happy with that. Now at this point, it's just let's just run Theaters of Pain until I finally get this trinket. So. I just, when I'm doing my M+, I just open up the group finder and basically look for groups that are doing 15 plus Theater of Pains and run them and keep going. So I had a good time running with the teams that I ran with. There was one group that I was with that pulled one of the bosses before I was there, which was unfortunate because it meant that they basically went in and wiped and then were like, healer, what's going on? And I was like, you literally pulled the boss before I was at the room. So,
whoops. Yeah. Check your mini map, maybe.
Yeah. So they apologized for that, which I thought was funny, but I guess they were just doing their thing. They were in their groove, which I fully understand. So, otherwise, it was a great week of M+ stuff to run. It was definitely a fun grind to get that Valor, and the Valor is being very rewarding at the moment. Okay.
Yeah, it feels great. And we also live in a world now where you can confidently use Valor specifically for transmog.
Yes.
Right? Like, because you can get as much Valor as you want as long as you're playing the game.
Yeah.
And you can take like a 262 drop and put it in the catalyst and convert. Now we're getting more catalyst charges. We've had enough now that like if you have your set pieces sorted, you don't really need the bonuses upgraded, Yep. I actually did that recently. I had a pair of boots. Warrior set boots do not drop. The appearance only exists, the items only exist from Creation Catalyst. They do not come from any source.
Neat piece of trivia.
It's I think the cloak works the same way. I don't know. They just figured that warriors would love to use the Creation Catalyst, so there was no way to get the appearances for those items. But so I learned that recently. I'm like, okay, well, once things open up a little bit, I'll have to do that to get some boots. And I had 262 boots from a dungeon drop. I was like, nice, I'll stash these, and once I have some leeway, I'll do that. So that's what I did. I converted them to the set item to match the appearance. I mean, they don't have a bonus, of course, but they match the visual of the set, like they're the ones that go with the pants.
Yeah.
And then, so I got the normal appearance because there were 262, upgraded them one time for 400 to 265, got the heroic appearance. So I'm halfway there with boots. I think I got, I have a 246 set, so I can get the LFR appearance if I so choose at some point. Just sitting around. I got to get cloak on the list. I guess I'll probably wait for after next reset in case I pull 278 shoulders or something out of the vault. I don't want to use up all of my charges before a vault opens, and also we're kind of desynced now, right? Like it's a 4-day reset, which doesn't mean you get 2 a week. It means you get 1 every 4 days, so it can overlap reset funny. If it's not, you're not going to get one at reset. It has its own independent timer at this point. So do pay attention to that if you're using the catalyst for MOG.
You might have more charges than you think. Yeah.
You might have more charges than you think, but also you don't want to use up all your charges, assuming you're going to get one at Tuesday reset, and you'll be able to take your shiny loot right over to it, because you may not. You just got to be a little careful.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week in World of Warcraft is the Arena Skirmish bonus event, meaning the Sign of the Skirmisher buff is up, increasing your honor gains from Arena Skirmishes by 50%, and there's a quest to win 10, which gives you some anima, conquest, and honor. So if you are someone who just wants to get a bunch of honor this week, or some extra conquest, or maybe some anima, or maybe you just have fun doing skirmishes, feel free to pick up this quest in Oribos before you head out and do all your skirmishes for the week. As far as an Oribos goes, speaking of PvP stuff with the Arena Skirmish bonus event, you'll want to head out to your major city, as in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, or I guess, it's just the two, and turn on War Mode, and then head back to Oribos and pick up A New Deal quest. We've been pumping this for the past few weeks. This quest is great. And basically, you have to collect 150 essence, and that essence comes from killing mobs, killing rares, looting chests inside of Zereth Mortis. And when you complete this quest, you get a choice of one of the new PvP trinkets that exist in the game, some of which are actually quite nice because they're all conquest trinkets. They're all 262, which is really nice. Or the other option is 3,000 honor is what you can get out of this. And you can actually spend 2,000 honor on the vendor if you don't really care about gear to buy Marks of Honor, which you then can buy Transmog if that's more your thing. Or you can buy actually honor gear and then use the honor to upgrade that gear and get yourself a piece of gear upgraded on alt really quickly. But more importantly, the reason why we pump this quest every week is it's worth 35% towards your Patterns Within Patterns weekly quest in Zereth Mortis. So if on Tuesday you turn on War Mode, pick up the A New Deal quest, go to Zereth Mortis, do your normal routine in Zereth Mortis while you have the Patterns Within Patterns quest, so killing Antros, who drops like 20 towards this A New Deal quest, 20 of the essence, going around and looting all the chests, which you can get a wide variety, up to 20 from each of those chests, killing off mobs, same kind of thing, you get a random amount from the mobs, and killing rares. All of those things contribute towards Patterns with Patterns, and A New Deal. Typically, I end up at about 55% of the way through the quest with Patterns Within Patterns. By the time I finish the A New Deal quest, and I've done kind of my whole route of killing all the rares and everything, I turn in the A New Deal quest. I jump up by 35%. I'm now at 90% of the way through completing Patterns Within Patterns, and I just head back down and like loot a few chests, kill a few rares, and I'm done. And essentially, that's my whole weekly quest done in one route, which is great. I then turn off War Mode, so I don't have to worry about, fighting with other people, competing with other people for rares, or just getting ganked, which is great. And I can spend the rest of the week not in War Mode, which is perfect. So, yeah, definitely take advantage of that while you can. Jason does it on all of his tunes.
Yeah, there's no way I could be rolling 7 tunes through Patterns Within Patterns without, really not enjoying myself, I think, without... Because it's so streamlined. You can do it. You could do it easily in one brief session on a tune, as long as you get A New Deal finished. Because you get, it's 55% just from that and the world boss, which you're going to kill the world boss anyway. And then, you can do the daily quests give like 5 or 6% a piece, and there's 3 of those up every day. You get the 3 world quests. That's most of it right there. You don't need to do very much at all at that point. If you have to open chests or you can kill rares and stuff to complete A New Deal anyway, probably. If you're doing it just from doing quests, then you're really grinding a lot of mobs, and you probably shouldn't do it that way. So, it's huge. It's a great way to get that done. I mean, if you don't really care about getting patterns done, then don't worry about it, I guess. But yeah. I think Patterns is pretty lucrative. It's pretty worthwhile. It's like a nice goal to have per each of my alts to just make sure, I get a big stack of Cosmic Flux for the week. Maybe I get a shot at some extra Essentias. In 925, Legendary Crafting is going to open up so much more, so there might be stuff that I want to make and play around with. So all these things are concerns. I'll be glad that I had this stuff handy when the patch comes in. And if I get to the point where it's like, I don't think this is worthwhile doing on all of my tunes, then I'll stop. But at the moment, the combo of A New Deal and Patterns, it feels great. It feels like a really worthwhile thing to do on my alt stable.
Yeah, the nicest thing for me is the fact that it also has a huge amount of enlightened reputation, and the enlightened have the most rewards you can get from Paragon bags. My Paragon bag this past week actually gave me the soul shape form for the Ray, so I can now soul shape into a Ray, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And sort of soar around in that. It's a very fun one to have. As well as I got transmog I didn't have before. It gave me like a cloak or something I didn't have before that I could then learn transmog from. But one of the add-ons I'm running, I can't remember which one it is. When I mouse over the Paragon bags, or the reputations inside of my reputation frame, does a pop-up and shows me all of the potential rewards that were from each of those bags. So I know which ones I still don't have rewards from. And like it's like, 3 rewards from this one, 3 rewards from that one, 9 or 11 rewards from Enlightened. And you're like, oh, okay, I need a lot of Enlightened bags to be able to finish this off. So yeah, I'm definitely down with doing a nice, quick and easy, a new deal quest on top of patterns within patterns to be able to get that extra reputation to finish those quests up faster. So yeah, it's great. Definitely go out and do it. Okay, dungeon quests for the week. Theater of Pain and Plaguefall. Our PvP quests for the week are arenas and random battlegrounds. And our PvP brawl for the week is Cooking Impossible. So if you want any of those quests, you head out to Oribos and pick up the Dungeons Within Dungeons in the basement of the inn. You basically go into the inn, go all the way to the back of it. There's like a secret hallway with staircase that leads underneath of the inn, and you pick up the quests for Theater of Pain and Plaguefall there. The PvP vendor area is where you find the PvP quests for arenas and random BGs. And the brawl, you can just get the quest just by queuing into it. So if you queue into the brawl, this week it's Cooking Impossible, where sort of Nomi's back in the Valley of the Four Winds and is cooking up a storm, and you got to either get ingredients to Nomi, or you have to prevent your opponents from getting their ingredients to their Nomi, and basically you win by whoever is able to cook the meal first is kind of the concept in that one. But when you queue into it, you're going to get the Something Different quest pop up. You just accept that quest. That gets you Marks of Honor, Conquest, and Honor. It's a bonus you get for your first win of the week when you're doing this. There's then, of course, additional bonuses every time you win the brawl the first time of the day throughout the week. So if you do this every day, you get bonus Conquest every time, which is a great way to earn a bunch of Conquest. Which also, by the way, is uncapped. So, Valor and Conquest both went uncapped. So if you're someone who wants to bank up a whole bunch of Conquest, you can do that. It's possible now. But Cooking Impossible, I know, is one of Jason's favorite brawls. I think it's one of the true brawls that are out there where they really do change up the format. It's an arena that we don't have. There isn't a Valley of the Four Winds place where there's a battleground. Like, they just created this battleground for it. It's a great concept. You can choose to be more of the hunter-gatherer for your team, or the defender for your team, or the disruptor for your team. And it's kind of neat that they sort of have something with so many different roles, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of silliness. It's a good time.
Yeah, this is like the perfect example to me of like what a PvP brawl should be, right? Like, it is PvP gameplay, but it's so outside the norm of what we're used to in like a battleground, for example. So
yeah,
definitely a fun change of pace. Something that I kind of wish was available more, but I mean, at least with the frequent brawl rotation, it's up a lot. So if you've never done it before, like, you should definitely check it out. I'm not saying that this is a thing that if you need to do all the time, but if you've never done it before, it's worth a look because it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more kooky things that they put into the game, and it's certainly a good time. So I'm pumped about that. Okay, as far as Torghast goes, we have Skoldus Hall and Mort Regar, and is the Chorus of Dead Souls event. Jason, what is the Chorus of Dead Souls event?
So Chorus of Dead Souls runs all week, and anytime you go into a Torghast wing, your first anima power choice will present you, one of the options presented will be Howling Soul Core, and that allows you to assume the form of a Dread Soul Chorus. It replaces your abilities with maw-based spells, and while you are in the Dread Soul Chorus form, you have 50% increased damage and healing and 20% increased movement speed, and if you are running with a duo or a party, friendly players can merge with you and add to the chorus. It's pretty cool if you're doing Torghast and you need a little variety. These events are good for that. I think this one really shines if you do it with other people. It's okay to do by yourself, but you might just like your traditional kind of Torghast builds for soloing. But if you're going in with some friends, if you can convince anybody to do Torghast with you at this point in the game's life, give this a shot. I think you would have fun with it if you could do it with like 3 people or more together and just become this huge chorus and just blow up all the bad guys. That's pretty fun. If for solo play, I generally don't really like most of the events. I feel like, the predictability of the solo play element, getting the powers that I'm looking for is usually what I want to do. But it's
I like the
interesting.
Beast of Prodigium. I'm just putting it out there. The Beast of Prodigium is probably the best solo one that they've done. The other ones are kind of...
especially if you're not a tank spec. If you can get a tank, for you in there and just hold stuff in place, or there's a thing that makes it like explode and then regenerate, and you can do some cool stuff with that. That's pretty good for solo. I think this one and whatever the one is that turns your screen off, but you do like way more damage. Like I think they're more fun with parties. Yeah,
for sure. I could definitely see someone guiding someone who has their screen turned off through an entire Torghast. It'd be kind of hilarious to do.
Right.
So,
doing it by yourself is just going to be frustrating, but it could be fun with some friends.
Exactly. Okay. As far as world bosses go, Valinor Light of the Eons is up. So if you're someone who needs Valinor for any of which memories, Jason?
So Valinor, you got your priest, paladin, shaman legendaries. You got Archbishop Benedictus for priests. You got Final Verdict for paladins, and Windspeaker's Lava Resurgence for shamans. So if you got a fresh one of any of those classes, get out there and get your memory this week.
Cool. We also have Morgeth, the Tormentor of the Damned, up, and Antros up. Antros, of course, dropping that item level 259 gear. So there are some pieces there that can be converted from 259 over into tier pieces. So it's always worth running and trying to get those pieces for your character, unless you're a male wearer, in which case it's waist and wrist, which is unfortunate for you. Your plate wearers,
male wearers,
and your cloth wearers
give you a
have got it made.
265 legendary for free from doing quests. Like they really got it out for the two male classes. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I mean, soon there'll be a third one, right? Like we're gonna get the Draknir coming in.
Once you get the Drakthir Evokers, then everything will be male armor. It'll be everywhere, and it'll be super smooth because they're gonna want everybody to play the new class. So
exactly,
you just gotta wait a little bit longer. You'll have your moment.
Exactly. And speaking of waiting a little bit longer, all these bosses are going to be more viable in 9.2.5. They're making their gear rotate the viability based off of...
Well, in Season 4.
Yeah, Season 4, you're right. It might not be right away in 9.2.5. It might be Season 4. They're going to make the gear rotate being buffed, basically, depending on which raid is currently active. And so we're going to have 3 different raids that are active, rotating inside Season 4. And so you'll actually want to go back and kill Valinor for gear, which will be kind of crazy to do.
Like top tier item level gear from world bosses for a few months. It's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. So as much as it seems odd that we sometimes talk about the world bosses, there's actually a reason to, and it'll be kind of cool once that starts rotating through. So check that out. The other reason is if you're someone who's farming up a bunch of anima. I'm still on my anima journey for maxing out all my covenants. These guys are great because they give 500 anima a piece. So you can basically just get a ton of anima right away. You can finish that 1,000 anima quest every week. I pick up the 1,000 anima quest for gold. I also pick up the 1,000 anima quest for a seed for my garden in Night Fae, my conservatory, because that's how I make most of my gold. For those who are curious, I have essentially made like almost 150,000 gold in the last week and a half just from tending my garden and then reaping from my garden and then selling everything on the auction house and then tending my garden and reaping my garden and selling everything on the auction house. It's a great way to sustain myself through prog because prog is very expensive. I go through a lot of materials, a lot of potions, a lot of flasks, a lot of armor kits, and it's expensive. And I have stayed in the positive and actually gained gold. And the majority of that is just because I take care of the conservatory. I can't picture if I did that on multiple characters where I'd be at gold-wise. I think if I had 5 or 6 characters all Night Fae, all doing conservatories, man, oh man, that would be a good money-making thing.
It's all by volume, right? That's where it really kicks in because you get so much different stuff.
Yeah.
You don't get like some one big thing. You don't have like a big score, but it's just the consistency when you keep up with it. You generate so much stuff that you can then flip for gold. That's where it really pays off. Yeah. It even works out for me kind of, and my server economy is completely dead. So, that is the reason why I've stayed current with my, stuff like that, conservatory and mission table. Just keep it rolling. It pays off in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And then as far as Mythic Plus affixes go for the week, we have Fortified, Sanguine, and Grievous. So non-boss enemies have more health and inflict increased damage. When slain, non-boss enemies leave a lingering pool of Ichor that heals their allies and damages players. And if players drop below 90% hit points, They get a dot on them that ticks over time and increases its stacks, dealing more damage over time until they are healed back up above 90%. So this is actually a great week when it comes to tanking and DPSing, because Sandworn's fairly easy to handle as far as backing people, backing them or taking the mobs out of the pools. The pools don't last as long, so it's sort of been nerfed. The trash itself is going to hit harder, but the bosses don't hit harder, and there isn't something that's going to really complicate bosses with Sandworn, so that's really nice. It sucks for healers. This week's a bad week for healers. Grievous weeks are hard for healers. Fortified weeks are hard for healers because you basically have any mob that does any kind of AoE damage as a trash mob doing 30% increased damage from Fortified. And then on top of that, you have Grievous being, it puts a bleed on everybody. So every AoE spell puts a bleed on everybody that you have to sort of heal through. You can remove Grievous stacks with direct healing, which means if you're a paladin or a druid or someone who can do some sort of direct healing on yourself, it is nice to sort of help your healer out, remove a couple Grievous stacks by healing yourself with a couple of globals. That's really nice to do. Or get yourself back up over 90%, remove your own stacks. That's also really nice to do to help your healer out. It's not the best week for Mythic Plus. Fortified Sandworn in general can make things a bit sloggier in the sense that trash is going to live longer. When it does die, it leaves pools. If anything gets in a pool, like a caster ad that can't get interrupted standing in a pool, it's going to heal faster and for more because it has more health. And Sandworn heals based off of a percentage of the mob's health, which means that essentially it's more dangerous. Sandworn is more dangerous of a mechanic this week with Fortified than it is on a non-Fortified week. And obviously the Grievous is going to affect that trash as well and make healing more difficult. So this is like a middle of the road thing for me. This doesn't like completely and totally suck, but it's also not great and easy, and you can sort of walk your way through it for this week.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think it's okay because it's Fort week. It makes it a little bit better, I guess. Like I'd rather have in most dungeons, I'd rather have kind of a nasty Fort week than a nasty Tyrannical week. This isn't that nasty, but it's a little bit higher up the scale. Sandworn is sort of a double-edged sword on a Fort week because stuff takes longer to die, so you have more room to reposition it as it's dying, which can help. But if you do it wrong, then like you said, that's going to be more damage you're going to have to pump into anything that heals. So that, it's tricky, but if your tank is confident in moving stuff around, and especially if you have any kind of tools like knockbacks, any kind of other displacements that you can sort of coordinate, then that helps out a lot. I think one thing that really is bad about this week is that Grievous is not just a trash affix, right? So you have easy bosses. They're not tyrannical bosses, but if you're doing high enough keys, their AoE or random target abilities are really going to hurt. They're going to stack up Grievous. I mean, the good thing is there is more counterplay with Grievous than there used to be, since you do have that, that functionality where direct heals remove stacks. It didn't used to work like that. And in the tail end of BFA, there would be times where if I was running with some healers, they could never bail me out of deep Grievous if I got in there because my health pool was massive, right? It was before everything got squished down. And, I was taking percent of my health pool over time. And it doesn't work like that anymore, luckily. So you can always get bailed out of Grievous as long as you have time to react to it. So that helps a lot. But overall, I think this will be okay. I think the thing is the dungeon tuning and where character power is at this point, the way you can use relics strategically to progress through a dungeon. I almost feel like there aren't any bad weeks anymore. Like there are ones that are harder and easier, but there's not ones where it's like I'm one and done this week. There's counterplay, there's decisions that you can make, there's different ways to approach most of these problems, where even the harder combos, it's not like it was when Mythic Plus was newer, where you just have like a dead week or a key would be more or less undoable or something like that. We used to run into that quite a bit, in the earlier days of the system. And I think what they've really done is they've tried to narrow that band down so that the dungeons feel good to play and they encourage you to just keep pushing higher and higher up the system. And what really kicks in is the overall like baseline tuning is where you start getting tripped up, not on a particular affix or something like that. There are obviously situations where affixes interact badly with mechanics and make them really hard, but I think the overall goal seems to be more like make it the keystone rank is the thing that's really pushing the difficulty, and not necessarily the affix combo. And I think that's a lot better. It makes the game more fun for way more people, and it encourages people to get in there and, do 7s and push up from there and do 10s and keep going and try to get KSM and beyond. Like, I think that's great. I really feel like this is the best. This expansion is the best the system has felt since it came in Legion. And I think, season 1 was okay, but I think season 2 and season 3 have been really strong in those terms. So it's, even on this is probably one of the less fun combos we see on live, but even at that, I look at it and I go, okay, let's go get some fort raiding this week, and I think it's great.
Yeah. I want to take the next moment here to highlight something new that we're doing. Jason came up with a sort of an idea for a segment for the show, which I think is a cool segment for the show when we can do it. And it's where he wants to highlight sort of like a special strategy of how to either empower something, do something, take advantage of something in the game. And every now and then we sort of share tips, but this is kind of a bit more of a deep dive into the tips. And so, Jason, what are you highlighting in our special strategy section today?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Sandworn relics a little bit. Sort of a confluence of things have happened here. One is that I sort of offhandedly mentioned about, how I had collected 4-piece on all my tank alts within the last, few weeks here from doing my daily Sandworn relic stuff. And that prompted an email from a listener who said, hey, I don't know what you were talking about there. Like, can you give us some more detail on that? Because I want Sandworn relics. And also, as I mentioned at the top, like, it's kind of a slow news week. We don't have a lot of big changes to talk about. So I figured it was the perfect opportunity to, instead of replying to an email or something and then one listener gets the information, I figured we could chat about it and I can kind of describe what I've noticed with the system and how I've sort of tried to optimize it. So if you've been playing 9.2, you probably know what Sandworn relics are. They are an item. They act like a currency, but they're items. They stack to 250, and you can collect them from the northeastern desert area of Zereth Mortis. It's, if you look at the full screen map, it's called the Dread Portal. You see the Dread Portal on there, and then if you mouse over the subzone, it's called the Arrangement Index. It's up there in the the northeastern corner of the map, and you can collect the relics from rares and from the Sandworn chest in that area. There are also some weekly sources of Sandworn relics. Antros drops them when you kill Antros, the world boss. Your patterns within patterns cache will contain them, so you can get a nice handful from doing those two things, and you're probably doing those on a weekly basis anyway. And that adds up, but these items are pricey, and if that's all you're doing, or that's your primary source of getting them, it's going to take you a really long time to be able to even buy an item. There are some daily sources of Sandworn relics that if you are interested in getting 246 set piece items for a tune, you should be doing these every day that you can. Every day that you have time to play that tune, you should do this. One of them is Garudian, the big bird that spawns on the far eastern side of the map. Garudian is on top of this platform. There's like these hex pillars coming out of the ground, and Garudian's up on top. There are 3 little proto-avians in smaller nests at lower altitudes around Garudian. And when Garudian spawns in, you'll see these little mechanical rabbits, these like robot rabbit things. They have green nameplates. They'll be hopping around in the area. You want to pick those up, and when you get near the little birds, you'll get an extra action button. You throw the rabbit at the bird and repeat that for the other 2, and then Garudian will wake up and you can defeat Garudian and get some relics. Mother Festus is the other one that's a daily source of Sandworn relics, and that's the mecha spider thing in the cave that's nearby. It's just a bit southwest of where Garudian spawns. Motherfestas can be kind of gnarly to try to solo.
Yeah.
It's kind of rough. I've had problems with it even on like low item level tanks, and frankly, the volume of people like out in Zereth Mortis is decreasing. So you may have to get a bit creative with this. Maybe team up with some friends or something. What I tend to do is like I'll just park my tune and just wait for other people to stroll by, because other people will come and check it out and see if anybody's fighting it. So, post up. I haven't found the group finder to be too helpful. I've tried, but I haven't gotten anybody checking in on that. But
I would remind everyone too, if you're looking at taking on rares like this, if your character is at all along the process of upgrading the zone, all the zone rewards for the zone, be sure you're actually buying the that cost 2 ciphers to get, or 2 energy off of Pokepoke to get. Buy your buffs, because you can get like static main stat buff, you can get mastery buffs, you get rezzed when you die buffs, you can get damage reduced, you can have your cooldowns reset. There's all sorts of really great buffs that you can buy for your character that are on a 1-hour timer. So before you do your loop, when you first go into Zereth Mortis, pick up these buffs and then do your loop, because it'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah, the zone buffs are incredibly powerful. A lot of the zone specific gear is really powerful. The cipher gear that has the bonuses on it, if you don't have set piece bonuses, is really good. Make sure that you have Pokepoke out and in the mode that is going to benefit you the most, depending on your specialization. These are all good things to do, especially if you're trying to rare hunt and there's not a lot of traffic around you. The other daily thing that you must do, if you do nothing else on your journey to buy Sandworn Relic Gear, is you must open the Sandworn chest every day. How you open the Sandworn chest is you must kill mobs that exist in this area, in the Dread Portal area in the northeast, until they drop a total of 5 Sandworn chest key fragments. It's a green icon, green quality, and the icon is like a black and white kind of starburst thing. Once you get 5 of them, you combine them to create a Sandworn chest key. Once you have the key, you can open the chest. The chest spawns.
I want to note one thing. An important thing to note about this chest: you can only carry 5 fragments at a time, but you can carry as many keys as you want. So pay attention to your inventory, because chances are you have 5 fragments sitting in your inventory, and you just need to convert them into a key so you can start finding more fragments. When I do my daily loop, I almost always find a key or close to a key in fragments. And as long as I remember to convert it, I just end up banking up keys, depending on how much time I spend in the zone.
Yeah, make sure that you if you kill a bunch of mobs and you loot everything except some key fragments, that means that you have stacked to 5 and you need to make a key, and then you can pick up the ones that are sitting there. So don't overcap your key fragments. Make a key every time you get to 5. They don't have any kind of duration or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about that. Just pick them up and convert them. Now the chest has 4 different locations it spawns in, and they spawn on a pretty quick rotation. It's not like a daily rotation. It's every few minutes the chest moves around. But you can loot it once a day. If you high roll, you can get like 30 relics out of it. If you get somewhere in the 20s, that's about average. One thing I will caution about this, I had this happen to me actually one time. The chest can despawn while you're looting it, and you lose your key, and you don't get what you wanted out of the chest. So that really stinks. You might want to jump on this thing when you see it. Just be aware that can happen, and you will have to go farm out a new key. But there are a couple locations that I want to point out that I think are really good for farming the key fragments, because there's 3 locations here where a giant group of non-elite mobs will spawn on pretty quick timers. There's like 10 mobs in each of these stacks, and they all have a chance to drop key fragments. So if you have good AoE, you can wipe these out, move on to the next one, and just keep rotating around until you have your key for the day. There's one that's at sort of the south central area of this subzone. It's on the platform right beneath the southernmost oracle that spawns, like the one that always talks to you when you fly over it, and that you have to kill for the campaign quest. There's also another couple non-elites that spawn right there. There's one off to the east, and there's two off to the west. So you can, if you're confident in your AoE, you can pull in a huge group of non-elites right there and get a good chance at some key fragments. If you go northeast from there, there's another little platform where another huge group of non-elite spawn. And then if you go up to the northwest sort of border of that area, up by the cliffs, where like the domination cache is, it's one of the spots where the Sandworn chest can spawn as well. That there's a third group there that has another 9 or 10 non-elites in it. So that would be my typical, when I'm doing this on the tune, that's what I'm doing. It's just kind of rotating between those 3 points in that area, trying to get as many low friction key fragments as I possibly can. There are some rotating sources of Sandworn relics as well. There's 2 other rares, Akaris, the giant worm, and General Zarathura, the big dreadlord that spawns on Akaris spawns on the eastern side, a little bit. It's like due west of where Garudian spawns on the far east. And Zarathura is on the far west of the area, that big kind of platform on the far western edge. These do not spawn every day. They are not on any kind of set rotation that I can tell. So don't waste your time looking for them every single day. What you should do is go to Wowhead. Wowhead has a little section today in WoW right on the front page. They list the notable Zereth Mortis rares that are in rotation. So check that out, and then if you see Akaris and General Zarathura, you should hang out until they spawn and kill them for relics. I also highly recommend downloading and using Rare Scanner and Handy Notes if you are doing this kind of thing, because it will help you get to know where the chests spawn and where the rares spawn and when the rares are up and everything like that. The other thing is there are frequently daily quests from Farim and Pilgrim's Grace that grant Sandworn relics. There's usually one a day. Sometimes there are none, but there's usually one. So if you high roll, if you get a day where you have a daily quest and you have all 4 rares and you get pretty lucky with your drops, you can get like 90 of these in a day, which is almost a third of a piece of loot. So that's pretty good. And it's a lot more than, if you're not paying attention to this, what you're going to generate. You're not just going to fall into 90 Sandworn relics a day if you don't, follow these steps. Once you have them, you can use them at Pilgrim's Grace. There's a vendor there, and the vendor sells a slate of 246 item level gear. All of that gear is compatible with the Creation Catalyst as far as I'm aware. The helm, chest, and legs cost 300 relics because they're the big stat budget pieces. Shoulders and gloves cost 230. I think your best bet is probably to shoot for legs first, unless you're a clothy, because Antros can drop 259 cloth legs. So you might want to at least do that for the week, or depending on what your priorities are. I would rather have 259 set legs than 246 set legs. But for everybody else, I think legs are kind of a go-to. You want those big stats on your set piece. You want your set bonus. Obviously, that's why you're doing this. And also LFR, Halandris drops 239. So you don't really want the LFR drop. The other way to go would be Helm. Again, Anduin, this is big stat budget. Helm, chest, legs. Anduin drops 239 Helm. So you don't really want the 239 drop when you can just go get yourself a 246 vendor item. Gloves are the other piece that also drop at 239 from LFR. So again, vendor there is preferable if gloves are a piece that you want for your set, and then you don't have to do, LFR Lahuvum. You don't care about trying to fish for a drop and, queuing for that and spending time doing that instead of farming up relics. Chest and shoulders do drop from LFR at the equivalent item level of 246. So, I think if your goal is to get 4-piece, with minimal friction on an alt, or maybe just like you like to play solo, outdoor stuff, whatever, your best bet is to focus on your weeklies and dailies and the daily farm, and prioritize LFR Wing 3. That's Anduin, Lords of Dread, and Rygalan, because you can get, each one of those bosses is eligible to drop a set piece, and 2 of them drop equivalent to the vendor items in terms of item level. So, I've been following this for a few weeks now, and I ended up pretty, like, on the DK and DH, I got, full 246 or above item level 4-piece set without doing any LFR at all. Just very minimal time investment, ultimately, just over the course of maybe a couple weeks. A little bit of luck with World Boss never hurt anybody. Make sure you're doing that every week because, other than male armor classes, everybody can get something at pretty nice item level to convert, and plate and cloth can get 2 pieces, which is amazing. So, yeah, this is stuff that is not like super obvious. I had to kind of do a lot of research into this and just learning from experience and kind of analyzing patterns and seeing where stuff would show up and really understanding it. So hopefully this helps people out if you do have a tune that you're wanting to get set pieces on and you're not really interested in doing like organized play on that tune. Like, I am not interested in doing endgame content on my mage. I'll have my hunter out there soon. I don't want to do dungeons and raids, even LFR on these characters. I just want to play them and just kind of have a little bit of a different flavor, different play style, and just check it out and have something I feel like I can work towards. This is a perfect example of that. This is not anything we've ever had in the game before where you could approach it this way and get this kind of power on a tune that you weren't doing endgame with. And I mean, honestly, I think that's great. It's really opened up like a whole different gameplay experience for me. And I think doing this stuff has been really rewarding. So hopefully if anybody out there is in a similar spot where they want to mess around with a tune and want to feel really rewarded for it, hopefully that helps out. Because yeah, it's a lot, right? There's a lot going on here. There's a lot to know about. There's a lot of stuff you could easily miss, and then you're setting yourself days or even weeks behind where you could be with collecting relics, and then that means you're not buying pieces.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's a great way to gear up characters. It's a great way to get those tier sets, as you talked about, going. Thanks very much for putting the effort into putting together sort of a strategy talk about it. If people have more questions, feel free to email us, startingzone@gmail.com, about that.
Or if I missed anything,
or if you missed something,
if you have some tips about Sandworn relic acquisition, I would be interested. I still have more tunes that need more pieces.
Exactly, and we would certainly love to share those. So be sure to email us in or join our Discord and let us know. You can go to startingzone.com/Discord to find that as well. And Jason, breaking news: while we were recording this episode, Wowhead has found out about and released a post about the nerfs that we hinted at the top of the show. And so I feel like it's much more confirmed now that I have more sources outside of the sources that had already been telling me.
Right.
So yeah, basically Mythic Anduin, Mythic Rygalon, and Mythic Jailer all received massive nerf waves, like, Halandris level nerfs to these encounters, which continues with my small gripe, continues with my rhythm this entire tier. We basically killed a boss, and then the following reset, that boss gets massively nerfed, and all the teams that were behind us on prog then catch up to us because they can kill it 100 and something pulls faster than us because it's so much easier. So we've sort of been like literally on we killed Rygalon last night, and today they massively nerfed Rygalon, which means that all the teams that were 100 pulls behind us on Rygalon will now kill Rygalon in the next 10 pulls, and then they'll be right bound to Jailer with us. Fortunately, Jailer did also get nerfed, which means we get to walk into the nerf version of Jailer tonight to begin our prog. So at least, it actually worked out in our favor a little bit this time around. So to recap some of these changes, as far as Anduin goes on Mythic, the maximum time players can stay in Kingsmourn's phase was increased to 40 seconds from 35. So the maximum time you can stay downstairs was increased by 5 seconds. The blasphemy duration was increased to 12 seconds from 8. So a 30% increase, basically. They're giving you 4 more seconds of time to find your partner. Like, this is huge. It's just a huge amount of time to find your partner now in Mythic, which is great. As far as Lost Souls go, the duration for the downstairs phase obviously was increased to 40 seconds downstairs, which means the Lost Souls now have 40 seconds before they kill the person who was downstairs. So that change went in as well. So keep that in mind. As far as Rygalon goes, so just to recap the Anduin stuff, this will make the fight substantially easier just because it's a lot more leeway with 2 aspects of the fight that cause a lot of the early wipes. Blasphemy, people finding their partners, is usually what's going to cause a lot of your early wipes, and especially for us, like the majority of our wipes that happen on this fight happen to people in the very first Blasphemy that goes out not be able to get to their partner in time by like 2 seconds, 1 second, quarter of a second, not be able to. Like, I have died on top of my partner before in this fight, where literally we ran over each other and then both died because the mechanic ended at the exact time as we collided with each other. So the 4 seconds is massive.
That pain is familiar.
Yeah,
even not on Mythic, that pain is familiar.
So that nerf is massive to that, and then the time downstairs is the other reason you'll wipe on this fight the most, with people having to kill the ads within a particular window of time. That window used to be much tighter, which meant that you essentially wanted to kill the ads after Blasphemy came out, but before the duration expired, and there was like a 3-second window where you did that in. Now that's a 7-second window, or actually it's an 8-second window, so you have way more time to sort of go, everyone spread out for Blasphemy, okay, let's kill the ads, is what you can do now with that duration increase, as opposed to, okay, we're about to spread out for Blasphemy, start killing the ads now, okay, the ads died during that little like immunity window where people coming up from downstairs weren't going to get Blasphemy, and everyone spreads out. That's now 5 additional seconds. It's huge. So big changes to that fight. Rygalon, Cosmic Ejection, damage reduced by 33%. This is just like a massive raid-wide damage, and sucking 33% out of it is huge. So yay, that make that substantially easier. The duration of collapsing quasar fields, which is the pools that drop on the ground, which people have to run. They get a debuff over their head and they have to run into this pool that's on the ground. They increase that duration by 2 additional seconds, from 6 seconds to 8 seconds, which means there's much less of a panic moment of, oh my goodness, get downstairs, or kill this ad right now, Like that is more of an open window. You can kill the ads much faster because you have the extra 2 seconds. So if you kill an ad 2 seconds earlier, it's now not a wipe. It's now totally fine. So that's big. The Dark Collapse damage, which was just raid-wide damage, reduced by 25%. The Unstable Quasar damage was also reduced by 20%. And the radius on it was reduced from 8 yards to 6 yards. So Unstable Quasars basically were destroyed. They were these things that players had to go over to, and if they got too close to them, they took a whole bunch of damage from it. It was really bad. So anyways, reduced it by 20%. Glad that's done. Glad that's over with as far as the boss for us. But this is huge nerfs for the next teams going through. This is a fight where I was talking to Jason about the healing for it. The Resto Druids on this fight are doing like over 30,000 healing per second because it is massive, ridiculous sustained damage through the entire encounter. I was doing things I was having 30-second duration tranquilities with some of the tricks I was using to try and extend my trank as much as possible, because you could actually get value out of it in this encounter, which is insane. So yeah, they nerfed that. So that's going to be a lot easier for teams to kill. So that's Rygalon. Jailer, they made it so the Azerite radiation damage per stack was reduced from 100% to 80%. So each stack is going to be 20% less damage. So that's going to be substantially less damage. Torment damage, which is just the debuff that people get spread out, 10% less damage on that. Rune of Compulsion, where targets can get compelled. It's now down to 3 targets from 4. So that's 1 less person you have to deal with the mind control stuff on. Shattering Blast, the dot damage was reduced by 33%. Another massive thing of just passive damage that's taking place throughout the fight. Chainbreaker, when the 3 people go out to break their chains, damage reduced by 10%. And then the Meteor Cleave, that essentially the whole raid stacks in if they can while other people are off doing other things, is reduced by 9.1%. So this is overall, these aren't health nerfs to these bosses, right? They're not saying, hey, the DPS check for these bosses is lower. They're just making the healing check substantially lower. So the survivability much easier is what they've sort of done in all these nerfs for these 3 bosses. They went, we think the duration of the fights are good. We just think that teams are struggling to either personal responsibility, because they aren't able to use... Rygalon was a big fight for using bark skin into this other damage reduction to try and stay alive through the amount of damage that you're absorbing. Using Symbols of Hope with multiple priests to reduce the cooldown on everyone's personal cooldown so that they could use bark skin every 30 seconds as opposed to every minute. That kind of stuff was happening a lot on this fight. So by reducing the damage threshold, it'll make it easier for players to stay alive, which will make it easier for players to get farther into the encounters, which means that the bosses will die sooner. So they have certainly eased things, and it'll be interesting to see what Jailer feels like tonight. We only pulled him a couple of times yesterday, so we haven't seen enough of the fight to really know what this felt like pre-nerf. But I've certainly seen a lot of teams work on it. I know that Sloot was back in there this past week trying to get their first jailer kill since they killed it the first time, and that was like 2 months ago. So they're basically reprogging jailer, relearning the fight again. And so they'll welcome this change because they were struggling on some of this stuff. So it'll be nice for them to get that easy kill. Great to see the nerfs in general. It's just timing-wise kind of sucks for teams that are like trying to race to get a world rank. It takes the huge batch of teams that are stuck and catches them all up with you, which is a little scary when you're kind of pushing for a world rank. So that's the nature of the nerfs, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of inevitable, right? Like, they nudge it when they're not seeing the kill rates that they want. Some of these like mirror the lower difficulty nerfs that we've seen in a lot of ways with timings and stuff like that. Although, I mean, again, this is not in blue text quite yet. I'm wondering if there are lower difficulty changes as well, because I'm pretty sure that if this changes but nothing else changes, that this means blasphemy duration is longer on Mythic than on Heroic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there might be stuff we're missing. Some of this stuff might be, not quite exactly like what is going to be published later. But yeah, I mean, I think they've been, I've said it many times on the show over the last few months. Like they've kept their finger on a dial. They're not afraid to nerf stuff this tier. It did come in a bit too hot, probably, and it had that kind of feels bad initially because we fell off a power cliff losing Dom shards, and we didn't have double legendary, and we didn't have 2-piece, we didn't have 4-piece. We just had nothing going into this tier, so it felt pretty bad. Plus, it was tuned pretty hard, and some stuff was just kind of broken. They've dialed that in, and now it's more like, okay, our team's actually progressing through, and if not, then where do we need to make changes? And I think they need to do that. It's tricky because they hinge a lot on Hall of Fame, right? Because that was sort of the bar that they set for, like, okay, this is when it's time to open up Cross Realm Mythic and all this other stuff. And I feel like they have historically been a bit loath to do big nerfs before Hall of Fame was closed, but I don't think we really saw that as much this time. And part of it is because Alliance Hall of Fame is bizarre. There's just not enough teams to like actually fill it out and compete for those spots. So you end up with like the small handful of Alliance teams that really push it end up there, and then it's just sale runs all the way down to fill out the top 100. And then we end up waiting a really long time. Horde Hall of Fame, I believe, is closed now.
It is. It closed this past week. So Horde Hall of Fame filled with 100 teams this past week. Alliance Hall of Fame had 9 teams in it when Horde Hall of Fame finished and had been all done. There are currently like 40 Alliance teams that are working on Jailer. Like, there's a lot of Alliance teams working on Jailer. So I expect in the next few days, we'll see a ton of those come through, and we'll watch the Alliance Hall shoot up to like 60 or 70, teams filling it. And then probably next week or the week after, we'll see Alliance Hall of Fame start closing based off of these nerfs. So I think we are still like 3 weeks behind Horde or 4 weeks behind Horde as far as closing Hall of Fame goes. But it's close. It's just a little weird because of the imbalance in the amount of players who play at this level and be able to field those teams. This happened with where China essentially was selling Hall of Fame slots a lot in BFA. So towards the end of BFA, you essentially had the Chinese teams who had killed on Alliance side at the top couple of ranks, then reforming other guilds and selling off Hall of Fame slots, and Blizzard had to do a big purge to get rid of a bunch of like probably 15 or 20 or 25 entries in that Hall of Fame that were just the same people killing the raid again and again and again and again to sell off Hall of Fame slots, which was weird. But that's what was happening. So
it's inevitable. I mean, it's sort of a monster of their own creation, but there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to highlight, since I was talking about selling off Hall of Fame slots, was kind of, and this is something I want to do a bit more of a deep dive into at some point, was the fallout, I guess is the right term, of getting rid of these sales communities. It's been really interesting to see this week. And it's something that's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And this week it started to like become very noticeable for a lot of teams. Is when they got rid of sales communities, it meant that they were driving everyone to use trade chat to try and do a lot of their sales. And this created a lot of issues. And some of those issues were like raid teams in general would have trouble finding any kind of cross-realm sale thing to happen because moving gold around was not as logistically sound to do on a small basis. And so it's harder to field. It's harder to feel worthwhile doing a raid sale because you only get one or two buyers who can actually get in. Is it really worth running this heroic content for all these people for, 20k gold a piece? Not even that, 15k gold a piece for each raider. It's for a lot of those raiders, it's not, which means then you can't field the attendance, which means you can't do the sale. So that was really restrictive. But the other side of that is you removed a more legitimate, in the sense of you had a certain amount of legitimacy with these sales communities, way of doing sales. Because you had a Discord channel that was populated with many people. It had a whole organization structure of advertisers and senior advertisers and managers and people who ran it. And there was actually a way of reporting issues that happened, and there was blacklists of people who did things poorly. And there was a certain level of compensation that would happen if something went wrong. So if you had contributed gold, like you said, hey, I want to get a run through AOTC for this current raid. I'm willing to spend 200,000 gold to do that. Here's my 200,000 gold. And then the team that was supposed to carry you through that or take you through that experience failed to do so. You would get your gold back. The organizers would make sure you got your gold back, and everything was sort of like taken care of in that sense, right? Or they'd at least ensure you then got into a run where you were going to get AOTC. They guarantee you that what you were essentially, they guarantee the product that you were purchasing is the concept, right? What's happened now with those going away is we now receive whispers in game. This is how it started. About 4 weeks ago, we started getting whispers in game from people saying, hey, I saw this person advertising that you guys were doing sale runs for AOTC. They wanted 80,000 gold down payment. I gave it to them. When am I scheduled for my AOTC? And I'll give you the other 100K or whatever. And we would say, we aren't currently selling AOTCs. And so we start looking into it. There are now substantially more guilds with our guild name that have been created in the past chunk of time. And we start looking around at all the other guilds that are in the top area of Alliance, and there's substantially more of those guilds that have been created recently. And basically, scammers are making guilds and advertising inside trade chat as, hey, we are selling these heroic runs or PvP carries or whatever it is, and basically are doing the thing that happens in real life where someone calls your grandmother and says, hey, would you like to buy this thing? Give us $50. And your grandmother's like, yeah, I'd like to buy that thing. Here's $50 and my credit card number. And that person then just runs up a whole bunch of credit card bills on them, and the grandmother never receives anything, right? Just scamming people. That has now started happening with guilds. Thing, yeah. Like literally this has now happened in game. So if you are seeing advertising inside trade chat for, hey, blank guild is looking to do a sale, it's cost this much, and you contact that person and they go, hey, yep, we're doing this sale, it's going to cost this much, give us gold ahead of time, 100% you should look up that guild, find someone who's in leadership in it, talk to that leadership person to make sure this is a legitimate person you're talking to, and organize stuff through them. Because we have now had 12 cases in the last 3 weeks of this happening with our team alone. That's with our team alone. We're reaching out to other Alliance teams. It's happening with them too. Like this is now an epidemic that started inside of the game of people who are scamming people out of hundreds of thousands of gold because they are offering stuff in trade chat saying, hey, I represent this guild or this team. We're selling this thing. And they don't represent that team. They have no connection to that team. They have created fake guilds with, letters that look very similar to the actual guild name. They're using capital I's as opposed to L's, that kind of thing, to try and portray that they are doing these sales when they're not, and they're not associated with it. We had one guy get scammed out of like 400K. Like, we're talking about serious gold.
Wow.
Like, serious gold is happening with this. Where
that's unbelievable. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I still find it somewhat unbelievable. Like, this stuff will never totally go away. Like there's
No.
no way to get it to stop because people want to spend gold on stuff in
Sure.
the game, and people want to take the gold from people who want to spend it. So
Yep.
like you can't sort of avoid this abuse, and the abuse creeps in all over the system. It's like, I don't know. I mean, is it possible for Blizzard to just say our best bet is to add like essentially a work order concept, but for like
That's what I want. That's what I want. Yep.
I mean, you need some kind of arbiter, like you said, when there was the communities and stuff that worked well, except they were exploited when it was time for races and stuff like that. They became money laundering essentially to funnel like real world currency transactions into the system.
100%.
And the whole race to world first structure and everything like that is really just busted, and it's become so segmented at the top. Like there's really only a few teams that even have the resources to compete at this point for actual world first, and that kind of stuff just makes it worse.
But the important thing about this, the important thing about those communities for me is the little guy wasn't the one getting stomped on. In all those communities, the guy just looking to get his AOTC or just looking to whatever wasn't the one who was suffering because of these communities. It was a larger issue with, in some of these communities at the top, people are, as you said, laundering gold into actual real funds. And, it had nothing to do with the raid teams participating. It had nothing to do with the little guy trying to buy OTC or the majority of the transactions. It was where the money ended up at the top, or where the gold ended up at the top, getting transferred and moved around, creating some sort of financial gain with real money. That was what they were trying to stop, and they stopped it. Like there's still a couple ones that pop up every now and then and get slapped down, but the majority of the case stopped it. The issue is the result of that now, what we're seeing the fallout from, and it's been building and building and building, I think it's just going to get worse, is now the little guy's getting scammed. Now that one guy who just wants to get AOTC or just wants to get that mount or just wants to do that, whatever it is essentially, there's no guarantee with what you're doing. You could be interacting with someone who is just saying, hey, yeah, well, we just have to reserve your spot in the run. So just give me 20K to reserve your spot in the run. Or if you want the mount before the run, because we really have to make sure we get this, give me 200K towards the 2 million that you're going to spend on the mount. And that way, we'll hold the mount for you. We'll give you a spot in the runs. The person gives you 200K. That person then takes that 200K and mails it off to wherever they're going to mail it off to, and then deletes the character and deletes the guild.
Yeah, and nobody's reputation is at stake or on the line or whatever. It may harm the reputations of the guilds are impersonating to some degree, but it's like obvious that they're not associated with them. I feel like Blizzard either needs to find some formal way to address it and be the arbiter of these types of transactions, or I guess your only recourse at that point is to prevent players from trading gold to one another. Yeah, which that seems like not the right way to go, but it would cease this behavior. It would just be bad for the game. Yeah. So I don't know, but maybe in a world where we have things like work orders and whatnot, where you can craft an item, and receive gold for it without having a direct interaction with a player, maybe it's more viable and doesn't impact the game as broadly. But that's a tough problem. It's something that they have never really addressed, I think, properly, right? Like it's kind of like whack-a-mole, because however you address it, it's going to pop up somewhere else. But yeah, it's a bad situation where it's that easy for somebody to impersonate a representative of a guild and con somebody into a sale run that's never going to happen and take their gold and disappear. That's the kind of thing. I guess it's a thing to be aware of and try to avoid, and it's I don't know, report as much as you can, but it's tricky because it's something that's been around for a while, but there were so many other ways to do these things that it wasn't the way to scam people, right? Now it's because everyone was dumped into this field, everyone has to go to trade chat for doing this advertising. It's way easier for these people to do the scamming. And I'm not kidding. Like, we have had many people contact us recently who weren't scammed, but who were asking about whether or not we were doing something. Like it's getting to that point where we had that 14 people who got scammed. We know that, but there's also the other probably 20 or 30 people who've just reached out to our guild going, I saw this person advertising something. Is this you guys? Because it doesn't seem like it's you guys. Or other guilds, other teams seeing someone advertising for us and DMing us in Discord saying, hey,
I see this advertiser doing this thing. It's not one of you guys, is it? Because we now know as a higher end alliance community that this is happening more. So we're starting to pay more attention to it because we're all getting contacted by people who got scammed. It's bizarre. Yeah. So be careful out there when you're, looking for runs. And as Jason said, I really hope that Blizzard has some sort of solution in the works for how to do this behavior and how to do this activity, because I think it's amazing as an activity. I love the idea of the wealthy guy coming into town, paying a team of mercenaries to carry them through this difficult, challenging task. Like, it was even like season 2 of The Witcher had that happen in it. Like, it's, it just happens all the time, man. Like, that is a totally normal activity that happens all the time as far as people, paying a tour guide to take them through for a guided tour somewhere. It's essentially the same kind of concept. So I'm all for having a way to do that service. And I think work orders could be a cool way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, right, like they explicitly do not ban it in TOS, right? They're like, it's fine if you do this.
Yeah.
Except there's no tools to do it in a way that is safe for both parties,
Exactly.
right? Like,
yeah.
That's where, it's entirely dependent on player-user interaction.
Yeah.
And on good faith. And, I feel like there's ways that you could build it into the game and let the game be the arbiter of what is fair or what have you. And yeah, it's either that or turn off gold trading between players. And I don't know, it's something that I don't think they've addressed to anyone's satisfaction entirely. And this is a very strange development that you're talking about here in terms of how the intensity is increasing. So I mean, it's something. It's kind of a never-ending battle unless they officially put in-client support in that makes it where the game can figure out what's happening and who's supposed to be doing it and where the gold goes from and to, and once the certain conditions are met or whatever. I think without that, you're always going to have people getting scammed, and you're always going to have these sort of gray market potential transactions and stuff like that. So that's a very weird development.
Yeah. Okay, a couple more hot fixes we wanted to mention. The ciphers of the first ones, this in Zereth Mortis, the crystallic spheroids, the things I was talking about you want to use to buff your character up. They can now be used in other zones, other Shadowland zones outside of Zereth Mortis. This is pretty awesome. So I'm glad that they put this in.
Yeah. Go get your callings done really fast.
Exactly. In the raid itself, they fixed a bug with prototype Pantheon where they resolved an issue where the prototype of War could incidentally not cast Necrotic Ritual. That's probably.
I feel like it doesn't need to cast Necrotic Ritual.
Exactly.
Like we could just not do that. Yeah, that would have been fine to leave that in.
Maybe it's just having an off day and it doesn't want to cast it. Like, what's the problem with that? They also fixed one with Halandris where Lance would not inflict damage while Halandris was affected by the relocation form. Yeah, again, I mean, if Halandris doesn't feel like lancing people, like, what's the problem here?
Well, it's hard when you're relocating to lance your target and like do damage. So I feel like you could just leave. Yeah, these are fixes we didn't need.
Yeah,
you can just have the bosses not do stuff like mechanics or damage. I'd be fine with that. But they're working properly as far as we know. Yeah.
And then one last note here is for Burning Crusade Classic, Jason. They're phasing out character cloning services.
Yes. If we don't talk about Classic a lot, we are not really Classic players, but Classic might be on people's minds as, obviously Season of Mastery is going on in Classic era, and Isle of Quel'Danas just opened up in TBC, Wrath of the Lich King's on the horizon. They made a formal announcement last week that the character cloning service is going to be going away as of July 26th. It's on sale until then for 66% off. This is a service that allows you to have your snapshotted classic character from May 18th, 2021 or prior, and use it on either Classic Era or Burning Crusade realms. So if you have Classic Era characters, vanilla WoW characters from Classic, that you want to be able to play in both versions and you haven't cloned them, you have about 2 months to pull the trigger on that and make it happen. I guess it's worth noting that the current plan is not to do TBC era realms, and the TBC realms are just going to be patched to 3.x, and they're going to become Wrath of the Lich King realms when Wrath Classic comes out. So you will not have, 3 clones of the character existing in the 3 different eras, which I find a little disappointing. I sort of hope they flex on that at the last minute, but that's besides the point. The point is, if you want to keep any characters or have them available for play in Classic era and in Classic, the updated version of Classic Realms, then you need to do that soon. Otherwise, those characters are not going to be available. So, there's sort of that thing where if you haven't logged into a character since the TBC update last summer, you have a choice of like which era it belongs in, and then you clone it to the other one. If you don't make a choice, they become Burning Crusade Classic characters, and the Classic era version of the character gets deleted, and you won't be able to clone it. So if you went ahead to TBC and you're like, I'm not going to spend the money to clone, I don't really want to play Classic era, I'm never going to do that. If you have like a never say never moment with like a TBC tune and you want to restore that snapshot from last spring, just keep this in mind. You might want to invest in that service now before you don't get to anymore. This is something that I ended up doing right away. I like the idea of having like a max level character in vanilla WoW, essentially, like in perpetuity, even though I have barely played it since I hit max level. But, it's something that people should be aware of. So that's why I wanted to highlight it. Just make sure that if this means anything to you, just either take action or make your peace by July 26th.
Yeah. I received a DM from my raid leader during the show, and they were emphasizing one thing about the Rygalon nerfs that I thought was funny. I wanted to mention here right at the end, which is that the nerfs to Rygalon were equivalent to, on our kill, we would have taken 7 million less damage as a raid, which equates to 12% less damage taken through the entire fight from where we are right now. That is how strong those nerfs are. 7 million less raid damage that would have gone out during the raid. So
that's a lot of damage.
A lot of damage.
It's 20 players in the raid, but I think 7 million divided by 20 is still a lot of damage.
It is, especially when those players have like between 70,000 and 100,000 hit points based off tank or whatever role you're playing. So yeah, it's a lot of damage. So that is some big nerfs. Okay, with that, we want to play a quick sounder for our patrons, and we'll be right back. Hi everyone, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Celian, Infark, Kapawi, Mibble the Mighty, Nick, and Shorel. Thank you. This sounder is for you. That's right. We have a Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone, and we want to give a shout out and thank you to our newest patron, Jake S. Thank you so much for joining and supporting the show. As we mentioned last week, the patron call-in /QA episode was rescheduled to this Friday. It's going to be this coming Friday. That is the 20th of May. And you can feel free to write in your submissions to get them in early, or you can join us live through the Discord if you're a patron. Just send your submissions in through the Discord or through Patreon itself, and we will get those submissions on the show if you can't make it on Friday night. Typically, we start up around 8:30 on Friday night, so hopefully some people can join us live, and if they can't, at least a lot of people are submitting questions, and we'll be able to go through all your questions that you have, and we want to hear what you're excited about that's coming up in World of Warcraft. Could be 9.2.5 thing, could be a Dragonflight thing, could be just whatever it is, what's coming up next in World of Warcraft that you're excited for. I would love to talk more about work orders, because I think that's probably one of the coolest things they've ever implemented in the game, and I'm super pumped for that to come in. So we'll have to see what that looks like. Don't forget cross factions coming in 9.2.5. Like, that's going to be huge. We got Season 4 with all the bananas stuff happening with Season 4, and the speed and power progression is going to happen there. There's a lot happening. So what is the thing that you're excited about coming up in World of Warcraft? Let us know, patrons, and thank you very much to all of our patrons who support the show. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Jake S. Thanks for the support, and thanks for checking in the Discord. Good to hear from you. And looking forward to talking to people on Friday, seeing what's on people's minds. Since we had a call in, there's been a ton of WoW news and all kinds of stuff changing and stuff we didn't think we'd be seeing or didn't expect or whatever. So yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about. So excited to hear from people, and we'll talk to you then.
Great. If you folks have enjoyed listening to this episode, consider heading on over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcast, and leaving us a 5-star review. They really help out our podcast and sort of raise it up the charts, keeps us high on the iTunes charts, and keeps people finding the show and enjoying the show. So if you want more people to enjoy the show and listen in, go to your iTunes, your Apple Podcast, leave us that 5-star. Like Hothins12 did, entitled Go To Podcast.
That's Hot Hands.
It's
Hot Hands 12.
So Hothins, I guess, is another. There's no second capital, all right? It could be Hot Hands. It could be Hot Hands. Hot Hands? All right. Hot Hands 12.
Hot Hands, yeah.
Hot Hands 12. Look forward to this dropping every week. So glad I found this cast. It really helps me with how to manage my WoW time and really explain some of the intricate parts of how to use your currencies and rewards. Appreciate this so much. Thank you very much, Hot Hands 12. I hope one of the two pronunciations was correct. I'm going to go with Jason's here. It's got to be Hot Hands 12. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thanks for writing in. And man, if you like explaining intricate parts of how to use currencies, I hope you like this episode.
Yeah,
that was for you.
That was for you. All right, that wraps up episode 519 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com. Reach out to us on Twitter at thestartingzone, or you can join our Discord over at thestartingzone.com/Discord. And the other thing is we now have a YouTube channel. All this stuff goes up on YouTube after the show as well. So if you want to see us sort of talking through the show and me checking notes and doing stuff while Jason's talking, that happens too. Yep. So there's a lot going on in the live show if you want to see that. Otherwise, you can get this nice, crisp, clean, edited just for audio version that you get. It is still our primary format is audio. We're just starting to incorporate the video as well. So you can head over there or go over to Twitch, twitch.tv/thestartingzone, watch the show live. We do it Tuesdays in the afternoon typically. And then that goes up as a highlight, and then I export that highlight to YouTube. And I've also been talking about starting a TikTok thing at some point for Starting Zone. So we'll see what that looks like. But with that, Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, always talking whatever I'm doing around WoW and other stuff. And you can find me streaming over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Sundays at night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We do raids and keystones and sometimes some, outdoor stuff, just hanging out late night doing some alt stuff. So if you want to come say hi, check that out over there.
Nice. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. I too have been streaming raids basically since our Anduin progression, I guess. I streamed our Anduin kill and then our Dreadlord's kill and then our Raglan kill. And I'll be starting streaming Jailer stuff tonight. You can sort of compete or open both. Actually, you could do a squad stream stuff between Jason and I if you wanted, because I start raid at 7:30 as well. So we raid Mondays through Thursdays at 7:30 until 10:30. And so we start up at the same time as Jason and sort of roll through our raid stuff. So feel free to stop on by there if you like. Say hi and, happy to show you some of the Mythic Prog that we're doing and chat with you. So feel free to join in. All right. With that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.